hot like pepper.
Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. This is the ILP Sunshine News Hour, sponsored by Sunshine. This is the ILP public consultation by Kenrick didn't run as usual as this morning, and we wound up with a short son. Good morning, Sunil. I'm just saying welcome to the ILP public consultation here on 97 FM, Hot Like Pepper Radio.
Good morning, Nigel. Good morning to Trinidad and Tobago. Good morning to our listeners on U97.5 FM. Good morning to Kenrick Jagannath. All the listeners and callers that he had from his previous hour. Nigel, it seems that you did not have your coffee as yet.
I lost my session there. I mean, Kenrick just handed me the mic and that was it. We were on, you know. It was just a thing. And of course, my fault, of course, I had some vehicle difficulties this morning. I had my car shut down, so I was scrambling to be here on time. So lots and lots of trouble going on. So now, of course, my callers could call in at 636-7547-68. 636-7547 and 489-1067, 489-1067.
During the course of the hour, right?
During the course of the hour.
The 2 hours, that is. And Nigel, you know, every Wednesday morning we are here from 7 to 9 a.m. and we are here with the courtesies of the Independent Liberal Party. We're also here on behalf of the Sunshine newspapers, with the courtesy of the Sunshine newspapers. And today, Wednesday, the Sunshine newspaper is out on your newsstands. You can get issue number 61, the Prime Minister's trip to World Cup exposed. Get the real details on Kamala's trip to Brazil. Rapists on the rampage in Trinidad and Tobago. Has MP Stacey Rupnarayan abandoned her wedding ring? ADB debt blame for the death of ice cream magnate Willie Balgobin. Government's favorite contractor, SIS, sponsoring Brent Sancho's football club in Central. All of this and more in this week's Sunshine newspapers on newsstands nationwide. Get your copy today or visit www.sunshine-tt.com. So, Nigel, so much to read in this week's Sunshine newspaper. Of course, there's a health segment, there's sports, there's business, so much more. Jack Warner's editorial. We have a call already. Let's try and kick the ball rolling, you know, with some pep this morning.
Good morning, caller. From where are you calling? Good morning, caller. Caller?
All right, Nigel. Let's move on.
All right,
well, Nigel,
let's move on.
You know, I as usual, coming up this morning in the car, I was listening to you know, some of the comments from the callers on that previous hour's programs. And I managed to listen to two callers who spoke for quite a while. And Nigel, the topics that they have raised are very, 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 very relevant topics to where I hope that today's program would go. Because, you know, from time to time, you know, you meet people and you hear them talking about what a wonderful job the government is doing and leave the party alone and what have you, right? But on the other hand, as we continue to talk every week, what we have to look at really is we have to look at the quality of governance, and we have to find tangible, meaningful ways to measure this thing called progress, and to be able to identify when we do or do not have results coming from those who have put in the government and to other places. And one of the callers talked about this situation recently involving the soldiers, and soldiers doing some activities out on their own without the police at all being involved, right? And I want to say that it was particularly frightening to look at the newspapers, and I see the photo circulating on the social media. A photo, it appears to be that it was taken from inside somebody's home, off their driveway. So Nigel, imagine you pull the curtain and there you are seeing a man in army fatigues with a mask over his face, with a big gun, standing up by a gap. Imagine that you're coming down the road. You're an ordinary law-abiding innocent citizen and you're coming down the road in your neighborhood, and you see 2 or 3 men with guns in army fatigues and masks on their face stopping you. Well, in a society, Nigel, where every so often we see in the newspapers, that some criminal element is held with army uniforms, right? And we know that they have more sophisticated guns. And the indicator for a joint patrol, really, is when you see the police and the army is there not to be in the front line, but to be supported to the police.
Right.
Right?
Because as I understand it, the system is put in place that these soldiers are not police officers. They are not to be out on patrol without police. They are there as a supportive status to the police. So when the police go out, there may only be one or two police officers, but they are foremost present, they are in charge, and the supporting directing of traffic and blockade and whatnot is to be given by the military personnel. So if they're out on their own now, the question is, where is the escorting police? I mean, because they were talking about giving soldiers I think it was the right to arrest, which I thought was a technical issue, because when you do your time in the police force, you understand the rights of the civilian, the rights of the criminal, and the rights of the alleged criminal, and the rights of the population. I don't believe soldiers have that. Now, if the question was, were you giving them the right to arrest, or were you giving them the right to detain? Because you detain them, take them to the police station, and then, of course, they are charged and arrested at the police station. The question, of course, came about, do you want to give soldiers the right to arrest as compared to detaining them? But again, if that's only if there is not a joint patrol. Because if there isn't a police officer with them, then there is no police officer to arrest. So the most a soldier could do at the moment is detain an individual. But I mean, the question is, what's really going on in these areas, and what's establishing, what exactly are they being told to do? Because at the moment, it seems that it seems to be, well, I hate to use this, because there's been an accusation it's given time and time again. It looks like it's a public relations stunt.
Well, in this particular case, Nigel, what had happened, if you're following the news stories, is that a soldier was shot and killed. I think it was last week or a couple of days ago. That individual was shot and killed. He was found in his car. All right, and of course, just like the victim's family, his friends and his co-workers and so on, they would be upset. They are obviously anxious for some justice to be served and what have you. But what has happened is that the soldiers have taken it upon themselves, as they often do. And they have gone out on their own, and they are conducting manhunts, roadblocks, they're cordoning off around people's homes. We saw as well where they went to Guardian.
Are they doing this under instructions from a police officer, or are they doing this on their own?
Well, the police thing is that the police are not there. And from what I recall, when you have a joint operation, if you have a joint operation, is the police is the one calling, I don't want to say calling the shots, but calling the pace of we are going here and we are going there. And the soldiers really supposed to be bringing up the back end, the periphery, right? But in this situation, I don't think it was sanctioned by the government. I don't think it was sanctioned by the military. I don't think there's police support involved in it. So they are out on their own doing whatever they want. And the same seems to be happening with regard to what transpired at the Guardian Media building 2 nights ago.
Well, that's a very interesting situation, whereas the building was evacuated and shut down based on instructions coming in that there was a threat against the building itself and the employees.
So imagine in downtown Port of Spain, all of a sudden, a set of fellas in army fatigues with big guns in the vicinity, not too far from the Red House. The Red House is in one direction, the new Parliament facilities, which is the waterfront, is in the other direction. Police headquarters is right there. Right? And Nigel, you coming down the road, all of a sudden you see a set of people with army fatigues and masks on their face and gun in their hand, just taking over the place. And does that not conjure in people's minds memories of 1990?
Well, I mean, it's certainly if the police
Or 1970?
well, if the police or the military suddenly come swooping down on any building, I'm sure a lot of people be
No,
concerned.
but the thing is, if you see that, knowing what we know of our society today, if you see that, what you think is, where's the police? Because if you see the police moving, working towards the, working with the soldiers, you might assume it's a joint patrol. But when you just see soldiers running up and down with no police around them, you wonder if you're in a state of war, and what kind of war, and who's at war with who, or is it a coup?
Well, certainly downtown Port of Spain, there would have been that concern from civilians walking around in the vicinity. I mean, certainly, when they cordon off areas and whatnot. But I mean, the police have to, I mean, be up front and be in the front line to represent. I mean, and certainly the soldiers are a secondary unit behind them. But I mean, the question really is this being managed correctly, or was it just an attempt to bring out more force in the city of
Nigel,
Port of Spain, especially under the downtown
soldiers took it upon themselves to go on a manhunt, something which was totally contrary and outside of the law. That's the bottom line. You looking for protocols and things. There are no protocols. Man partner there, he jump in a jeep, he grab a gun, he grab his partners, he say, let me go. If we find him, we'll deal with him. Well, and they went searching all over the place.
Well, it's a lawless society from one end of it. Now it seems to be a lawless society from the other end.
Now you cannot tell me that after so long, nobody could tell us who are these soldiers and what is being done about their actions.
Well, sorry, I can't. I this is beyond my pay limits here. I really don't know what more to say.
But it goes back to Nigel.
I mean, who's in control of the situation?
Well, that's the point. The point is who is in control, and apparently nobody is.
But do we directly file the complaint goes to the Commissioner of Police? Does it go to Gillian Lucky? Is the Minister of National Security?
Gillian Lucky and the Police Complaints Authority have no jurisdiction over the army.
Well, no, but I mean, if it's a joint patrol,
it's not.
And the complaint, well, then it's not a joint patrol. Then who do you complain to? Do you complain to the Minister of National Security? Does anyone really know? How do soldiers leave the barracks? Because as I understand it, the military do not leave Chagaramas and they do not leave the military base without instructions from the president, not the prime minister. The commander-in-chief in this country is the president, and they do not leave the barracks without instructions.
You are suggesting that His Excellency, President Anthony Carmona, who reminded us when he was sworn in that he has powers that we think he has, and there are powers we think he has that he doesn't have, that maybe he, hopefully in a day or two, maybe might be forthcoming with some answers.
Well, I didn't say that, but no. Okay, in 1990, there was an attack in downtown Port of Spain, and a number of us wondered, now I live in Diego Martin West, so I was looking for the reactionary coming out of Chagaramas. From what I was told subsequently, months and years later, is that they would not leave Tetron Barracks without direct instructions from the president of the Trinidad and Tobago, because they are not authorized to do any instruction in terms of defense of the country without instructions from the president. They would not leave their barracks to go downtown Port. They knew downtown Port of Spain was burning on the night of July 27, 1990. But they don't leave without instructions, because that's what they're trained to do. Because they follow the instructions of the president. They do not follow the instructions of the prime minister. And so the police had a problem in downtown Port of Spain, but it was the police problem, because it was an internal problem. And to get them involved, took a signed document from President's house down to Tetron Barracks before they will release their troops out onto the field. And that's why the response time was so low, because Mr. Nur Hassan Ali at the time was in London, and the acting president, I think, was hesitant in his directorate at the initial time. But when they got their act together, a couple hours later, they were off and running. But I mean, basically, the police officers do not operate without instructions. Now, if they've left the barracks with a vehicle, with a weapon, without directive, then that is a court-martialable offense. That is a wrong of the highest nature, and they should be held accountable for it. Because if there's an instruction that they go on joint patrols, there's an instruction coming from somebody. But if they go out on a rogue mission on their own, then there's serious consequences to be heard.
Well, Nigel, from all indications, it is a rogue mission.
Well, then
But it's not the first rogue mission, and the thing is that nothing really came out of past rogue missions. Because they did this before when they locked down parts of Rich Plains, Diego Martin, and Malik as well.
But the question is, who did the instructions come from? Were they instructed to do that under a joint police military?
No, it's rogue. Nigel, if you're going on a rogue mission, you don't ask permission to go on a rogue mission, then it's not rogue.
Well, then the police complaints authority is not to be filed. You file the complaint with the President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, that's not even the point, Nigel. The point is this. The point is, we are living in a society right now where there is so much of lawlessness. And I have to agree with one of the callers on the past half hour of broadcast on this station, where who do you turn to? Who do you turn to if the persons who you are looking to uphold law in the country are the ones who are breaking the law? Because the remit of the soldiers is not to investigate. It is not to investigate. When the debate came up with regard to the arrest powers for soldiers, right, police powers for soldiers, that is, and some people said we were talking about soldier police and so on. The soldiers were glad to have the protection of precept. They were glad to have the protection that comes when if you're going down the road and you have to get involved in a situation and you jump out your vehicle, right, to respond, you have protection. But they didn't want the responsibility of having to go to court and what have you.
Right. So, what the actual outcome of that was?
Right. Well, at the end of the day, the whole idea was abandoned.
Right.
Right. And I am saying, are we? For those of us who like to boast and want to go around promoting what a lovely country we have, are these the signs of paradise? Are these the things that you would look for in a paradise, where the things are so bad, where the things are so bad that you are having these murders, you are having these crimes, you are having a situation where the soldiers do not have confidence in the police service, and the soldiers have now gone rogue. And when soldiers have gone rogue, and nobody in authority, not even the Minister of National Security, not even within 24 hours, has something to say, something meaningful, doesn't have anything meaningful at all to say with respect to that situation, to bring some sort of calm, to bring some sort of reassurance to our citizens.
But so it would seem to me that there is no planning, there is nobody in charge. There's nobody. Is there a logbook that states that this police officer went out on this patrol with this police group of soldiers? Does anything? Where is the accountability? Who's doing the checks and balances? Because if you have a group of soldiers and they're deployed to, let's say, the St. James Police Station or the Carnage Police Station or the Four Roads Police Station, they go out, or the Chaguanas Police Station, is there a record being kept of what's going on? Do we know if I see, I don't know if the license plates are TTR, but if I see an army vehicle out on the road with a license plate, do we know who's driving it or whatnot?
Nigel, when the people in Roystonia, right, and what happened in Roystonia happened in other places, but it just happened that the one in Roystonia featured more prominently,
right,
on the newspapers and in the social media, right? Because what they were saying is that the soldiers were going to places such as homes of friends and relatives of the person they're looking for. They were going to other people's homes looking for the guy. And one of the places they ended up with was right there in Roystonia in Cuba, right? When
without police,
they gone rogue.
Okay.
They gone rogue, right? The point that I was about to make it slipped me, but
they were looking for the gentleman, and they were checking his friends and family, and one of his friends and family said was in Roystonia. But the crux of my question is, they must have been under some supervision of a police officer. You're telling me?
No, they went rogue, Nigel.
Yeah, excuse me, because I didn't see the article. But I mean, the question now comes up to, who is accountable for that? Who do you systematically then file the complaint?
And then what you do is you go up the ladder. And while you are going up the ladder, if you as a citizen, see something like this, you are looking for a ladder to follow and you are assuming police complaints authority. But it is not the remit of the police complaint. So you now as a citizen are at a loss as to what to do. Or the point I was going to make is that persons in Roystonia, when they saw these masked men with guns surrounding houses and taking over their community, you know what they did? They called the police. And the police said, well, we ain't know nothing what going on, we ain't know nothing about that. We don't have no exercise going on down there.
And the Cuba police station was unaware of what was happening.
Of what is going on. So it clearly...
But did they respond? Did they show up?
Well, I didn't see anything like that in the report. I don't want to be unfair to Cuba police.
Okay.
Right, but the fact of the matter is, the police were not aware. And I'm making the point that if you as a citizen trying to figure out what to do, you are going to be at the bottom of the ladder searching for a way up to get an answer. The Minister of National Security is supposed to be looking downwards, the chain of command coming down to say, well, okay, where's my Chief of Defense Staff? Where's my Chief of Defense Staff? Chief, what do you know about this? The chief would say, well, I really don't know nothing about it, but let me find out, because there are levels of commanding officers until you reach the person who is directly supervising these individuals. And somebody has to answer. There's a line of command coming down to these people.
So what we're basically saying is that we have a group of police officers, a group of soldiers out there without supervision, hunting down on a man.
Hunting down people. But the thing is, Nigel, now there are people out there who will be saying that, you know, it is better that these people are hunted down and dealt with. And they really care who do it because they're desperate right now. We saw a situation a couple of days ago where a 44-year-old businesswoman from South was shot and killed while coming from the bank, getting into her vehicle. I mean, and you have we don't even need to single out murders anymore.
That happened here in Cuba. Right?
So that you have these situations that really tug at our emotions. They tug at our emotions, and we may tend to think that, you know what, sometimes maybe we should just let whatever consequences that people want to resort to, let them do it, because at the end of the day what you're doing is you're exterminating people, right?
Yeah, but that doesn't work, because if you start
that, it's wrong.
Well, it's definitely wrong. But if you start that process down the line, then it might be good for the drug dealers, it might be good for the murderers, then it might be good for the car bandits, then it might think. But what happens when it trickles down and eventually reaches citizenry? And you have your country under literal martial law without regulation. You're allowing the police and the military to take over.
You see, Nigel, if you sign up to be the government and you sign up to be a Minister of National Security, which is what Gary Griffith has done. He signed up to be National Security Minister.
He took the portfolio.
Right.
Yes.
What happens is that there are parameters within which you have to operate.
Of course, yes.
Because anybody could just go in there and break the law and say, here, what's going on? Let me just take all this order and let them on the road with a license to kill and let go the dogs of war and let them do what they want. Because the last time we spoke about dogs of war, I showed where when that sort of phraseology is used, it refers and it's usually accompanied by soldiers going out and they will be becoming rogue, all right, and committing all kinds of acts against the citizenry. So when you sign up for this job, you're supposed to know what the parameters are, and you're supposed to be able to do the work within that.
But there are enough legal attorneys who know civil rights law in the administration. Somebody must step up and put a stop to this. In fact, there should be a few lawyers in the opposition who should be standing up and taking note of what's happening.
Nigel, when I was a member of the staff at the office of the leader of the opposition, that is around the time that soldiers had went into Rich Plain.
Right.
And locked down Rich Plain. And every day for about 2 weeks, you are reading on the papers, sometimes on the front page, You are reading about Rich Plain lockdown. You have pictures of soldiers. You have interviews with some of the soldiers who are involved and who are directing their colleagues and what have you. There was no state of emergency or anything like that to justify
their action.
nature of military presence in Rich Plain. Right? And at the same time, the UNC, then in opposition, was criticizing that.
Good morning, caller. Where are you calling from?
San Fernando.
Go ahead, San
Good morning,
Fernando.
sir. Welcome.
Yeah, morning. Dogs of War happened to be a movie. It had nothing to do with the soldiers moving in and the civilian population. So that is an erroneous statement. And I want to remind you, gentlemen, you are with the ILP.
Uh-huh.
Your leader moved into Debe on a peaceful demonstration with the army and the police, broke down a camp and moved the people's religious symbols. And you are here talking about soldier behavior this morning? When the soldiers who you went to, when you told them to move it, they said they're not doing that, they're not interfering with the people thing. And he went and did as a minister of national security. And now come this one talk about dogs of war and soldiers and moving in the civilian population? Come on, man, gentlemen. This is not the way to go about things. Thank you.
All right, caller. Thank you for your contribution.
Well,
Let me just say one other thing on that.
Right.
When Mr. Warner went down to the site in Debe, right, in the presence of, in the company of the soldiers, right,
And Mr. Colin Partap.
and Junior Minister Partap, right, when he went down there, the brigadier who was in charge of the army was there. And what the soldiers were doing was the soldiers were moving in to reclaim government land. That is what it was. It is the same thing that a previous administration, perhaps ill-advised, I don't know, did when they went to Mukarapo, where the Jamaat al-Muslimin was grabbing up land.
Well, I'll concur with the caller because
But the dogs of war issue, Nigel, the dogs of war, if you check on the internet, all right, and
it's a quote directly from Hamlet.
It's a quote from a Shakespeare play, right? And what I said when I mentioned it the last time was that different literature scholars have tried to explain or to interpret what that phrase means. And if you go to what they have written about it and what their analysis would be, you would see an interpretation. I'll pull it up for a while while we're taking that call that's blinking there.
Okay. Good morning, caller. From where are you calling?
Morning, calling from the West.
Go ahead, West.
I only hope the day we have an attack on this country, the soldiers could behave like how they are behaving now, because they're getting on as though there's a war out there, which it isn't, right? That is why people, and you see Gary Griffith is aware of what these soldiers doing, because you can't tell me your commander-in-chief or the brigadier want to say he don't know what his officers going out there and doing. So how they could just go out in an area, first to begin you're putting on mask, what's that? And that is why you will hear young fellas saying, if another person do them something, I'll go get my soldier partner to come for you.
Exactly.
Because that is the norm. That is the norm. Anytime, because that incident is when one of the soldiers got killed in a christening of Farm Road in Rich Plain.
The man's child was
yes, the guy's child. Yes, and he was killed because of an incident with a parking on the street with some maxi driver, and one set of thing went on, and they call out, what? So anybody who have a soldier relative and a neighbor do them something, they could call out the army partner and the cousin and whoever, and they could come and lock down an area. So it is go brigadier. This is a wrong message you're sending. And that is why soldiers go out and they do all kind of things when they go out in areas. because of that behavior, and I remember with that incident in Farmon in Rich Plain, Prakash Ramadan, a lot of them, they were in the opposition at that time, and they went down, and they say it's wrong, it is illegal. So Prakash Ramadan, I want to ask you, what was wrong then in Rich Plain in 2010? Is it right now? It is very mind-boggling, and you are confusing the public because those soldiers are getting on very lawless. I remember walking up Chancellor a few years ago, and the police was up there, and they sent all the workers back down. You know why? Some soldiers came up and brought a fella who they had, you have to say, kidnapped or abducted from Mova, and threw him over the cliff. And the police found him, and these soldiers were arrested. But one stand to face trial. You know why? The guy could have only identified one person. He had an incident with that guy, and he called out his army partners. They drag him out of his house in Mova, beat him up and took him up Chancellor and threw him over the hills. If only could remember. I don't forget these incidents. And they arrested who they could have arrested, and during the identification parade, he only could identify one or two of them. That is, what kind of a precedent is that? So that is why I said to you all just now, anybody have an army partner and you do them anything, they could call out the army partner to come and beat you up. Brigadier Gary Griffith, that is a wrong thing you're sending to this country, that soldiers could come and beat up people in an area because one of the... When the guy got killed down Tetron, remember there was a soldier got killed down Tetron? Up to now they're finding who killed the guy. And there was a video showing a soldier standing up next to the body, and they're saying the fella died of asthma. Up to now that case hasn't been solved. But all you could come out and want to beat up people when one of all your soldier people get killed. That is a wrong thing. And Prakash, you condone this thing in 2010, and now you want to, well, it right now, it's wrong now? Give me a break. You all have a good day.
Thank you, brother. You follow the point that we're making. The point that I am making is that under the previous administration, when those who are in government today were in opposition, the same thing happened. And they demanded that the minister is supposed to answer right away. And this is wrong, and that is wrong, and that is wrong. And today you are doing the same things that you condemn the you condemn the PNM for.
I just wanted to indicate that I was here with Kenrick on Mr. Jack Warner's first day as Minister of National Security. I did condemn the moving of those Murties and the action taken against the highway route movement camp. But I condemned the whole and I still maintain that position. But I mean, fundamentally, I mean, he did what he thought he was doing right.
The thing too, Nigel, is this, and I'm not seeking to defend him, right? But when they did what they did, by going down to south, Mr. Warner didn't just say, fellas, jump in the van, let we go. He had a meeting with his heads of divisions, and he said, listen, the government has this project, and he asked them for their advice, what can we do? And he said that, I'm not making it up. He said that to the media when the media spoke to him. He said he asked the chief of defense staff if there is anything that the defense force could do to assist in this situation. And he acted on the advice given to him by the chief of defense staff. And the chief of defense staff was down there. And when the soldiers said that maybe for over superstitious reasons, they don't want to interfere with the religious items, Mr. Warner and Colin Partap said, well, they do not fear the superstition. They would go on there and move it.
Folks, we're going to take a commercial break, and afterwards, 636-7547, 636-7547 after this.
The sunshine, always on my mind. Give me a sunshine newspapers. It's not reporting like any other.
The Sunshine Weekly, keeping you in touch locally, regionally, and internationally. Committed to its readership and clientele. The Sunshine, a most timely intervention in these trying times of our nation. Get the facts, get the Sunshine newspaper.
This weekly is hard to beat because the sunshine pushing some heat. Give me a sunshine, it's always on my mind.
Get the facts, get the Sunshine.
Sheikh Leisha Limited of number 44 Southern Main Road, Warrenville in Canoopia, the manufacturers and distributors of paper bags, such as grease-proof paper, garbage and plastic bags. They also carry vermicelli, split peas powder, and much, much more. Call them at 665-3336 or 672-3313. Visit them at number 44 Southern Main Road, Canoopia. Sheikh Leisha Limited now introduces their newest product, Sheikh Parch Vermicelli, the hassle-free and easy way to prepare your tasty sunwine dishes. Enjoy another great quality product from Sheikh Leisha Limited. Sheikh Leisha Limited, your one-stop shop for savings.
Are you building or renovating? Well then, head on down to Arme Hardware for all your building materials. Located at Derrick Road, Chase Village, Trinidad, and also in Providence, Guyana. You can call Arme Hardware on 760-7938. Fax Arme Hardware on 672-8557. Or you can send your email to arme@ymail.com. Arme Hardware for all your building materials. Located at Derrick Road, Chase Village, and also Providence, Guyana.
In time of bereavement, let David Budu's Funeral Home Limited take care of all your needs. Operating out of 2551 High Street, Rio Claro, they specialize in complete cremation and burial. Available 24 hours daily, they offer a prompt, reliable and courteous service. With a modern refrigeration system, they also handle the shipping and receiving of bodies worldwide. An embalming service is also available. David Budu's Funeral Home Limited, serving all faiths and religion. Visit their office at 2551 High Street, Rio Claro, or call them for personal service at 644-2073 or 782-7237.
The sunshine, always on my mind. Give me your sunshine newspapers. They're not reporting like any other. They're giving me the facts, information to the max. I'm getting my news from all around, even worldwide, and what's going on in town. This weekly is hard to beat because the sunshine pushing some heat. Give me your sunshine, it's always on my mind.
Get the facts, get the sunshine. Tune in every Wednesday from 7 to 9 a.m. for ILP Speaks National Consultation.
This is the ILP's national consultation here on 975 Hotline Pepper Radio. My name is Nigel Mahabir, and with me in studio is Sunil. Ramjitsingh. We are sponsored, of course, by the Sunshine newspaper, now out in issue number 61. With the number of headlines going on about Prime Minister's trip to the World Cup exposed. Get the real details on Kamala's trip to Brazil. Rapists on the rampage in Trinidad and Tobago, headline in the Sunshine newspaper. Stacey Rupnarine, has she abandoned her wedding ring? Read about it in the Sunshine newspaper, only $3. And of course, visit us on www.sunshine-tt.com. And of course, tomorrow, a special mention to the All Trinidad General Workers Trade Union and the Sugar Boilers Association. They will be leaving Rienzi Complex tomorrow at around 8:39. But the very first time at 8:30 to head up to Whitehall around the Savannah, and from there they will probably have a few speeches, a few meetings, and then they will march on the Prime Minister's office to deliver a letter indicating that this government has not fulfilled its DLC judgment. If you're interested in transport from the Couva area, that's from Rienzi Complex, call 636-2354. That's 636-2354. Put your name down. They're leaving Friday morning at about 8 o'clock. So you'll call in and reserve your location there.
Nigel, before we go back to our discussion that we had on the way, I just want to take the opportunity to remind our listeners that the chikungunya virus, I saw a report last couple of days where it was being said that there were 3 confirmed cases in the country, and therefore the virus had reached to our shores. And I don't know how aware people are of this virus, and I thought I would just share a little bit of information. The chikungunya is a mosquito-borne viral disease, and the virus is transmitted from human to human by the bites of infected female mosquitoes. Most commonly, the mosquitoes involved are the Aedes aegypti and the Aedes albopictus, 2 species which can also transmit other mosquito-borne viruses, including dengue. What are some of the signs and symptoms? The chikungunya is characterized by an abrupt onset of fever, frequently accompanied by joint pain. Other common signs and symptoms include muscle pain, headache, nausea, fatigue, and rash. The joint pain is often very debilitating, but usually lasts for a few days or may be prolonged to weeks. Most patients recover fully, but in some cases, joint pain may persist for several months or even years. And occasional cases of eye, neurological, and heart complications have been reported, as well as gastrointestinal complaints. There are instances where they say it can contribute to the cause of death, particularly among older persons. It is not uncommon that the virus is misdiagnosed or mistaken for other types of illnesses. Some people may feel it's just a bad flu, or they may even think it's a dengue, Nigel, right? I want to suggest to persons, let me repeat the signs and symptoms. You're looking at abrupt onset of fever, frequently accompanied by joint pain. Other common signs and symptoms include muscle pain, headache, nausea, fatigue, and rash. Remember, severe joint pains. You can have gastrointestinal complaints and sometimes heart, eye, and neurological complications as well. And it is spread by mosquitoes, the same kind of mosquitoes that can spread other diseases and viruses such as dengue. So therefore, Nigel, I want to ask citizens, to let us try and see what we can do to clean up our surroundings, right? You need to reduce the number of natural and artificial water-filled containers, which can provide a habitat for supporting the breeding of the mosquitoes. Of course, you can have spraying to kill flying mosquitoes, and they can have other treatments and what have you to kill the larvae and so on that may be in the water, right? And of course, you can use your mosquito nets and long clothing and insecticide vaporizers and mosquito coils and all those repellents and so on. To keep the mosquitoes from biting you. But Nigel, most important thing is that we need to keep a clean surrounding. It's not just, previously the big thing people would have been thinking about is dengue. Now you don't just have to worry about dengue alone. Now you have another virus.
Now, I wanted to also follow on that, because the 3 cases were acquired externally. And they came back to Trinidad and that. But what I didn't have the information is their geographic location. I don't know if he's in Mayaro or if he's in Toco or if he's in Sandy Grande. Because fundamentally, wherever those 3 individuals are, I mean, if they came from whichever Caribbean island or whichever infected region they came from, and they were within that area, I mean, I'd be on a high watch in those vicinities.
Nigel, sorry for cutting you across like this, right? But let me just say that, when we have at the Cuba Corporation, there I'm an older man, when we have our health meetings and so on, we have persons from public health and county medical and so on who come to those meetings, and they do share a lot of vital information with us. Right? Because, for example, you will hear about a dengue case, and people feel they should be spraying the whole country.
Of course.
Right? And what they advise is that is not really the scientific approach to dealing with it. Because what happens is that, let's say, for example, you went somewhere, right? Because a mosquito can only travel so far.
Of course. Yeah.
Right? So what happens is that an infected mosquito has to bite you. An infected mosquito can only come from a certain radius away from you, right? And if it bites you and you are a carrier, it can only travel so far.
Of course.
To bite somebody else.
Correct.
Right? So what would have probably happened is that you may have gone somewhere where you went, there was an infected person, an infected mosquito, a carrier mosquito that would have bitten you. And then you come home, but you're already carrying it. You're already going to get sick. But what happens is then a mosquito may bite you.
Well, certainly, that's the spread.
Right. So what they do is whenever there's a case, there's a radius around where that person, there's like a zone.
Of course.
That they treat particularly heavily. Right? Because outside of that zone, there isn't
the mosquito
really
can travel, yeah.
Yeah. So that...
but you do admit that there's individuals who work in Sandy Grande, they go into Port of Spain or they go into Chagram.
Right.
And then, of course, they go back home.
Right. But what happens is that as the cases arise, they will know where to treat because you don't have unlimited amount of resources.
Of course.
I said, when I listen to it sort of makes sense. And then what you really need to do, Nigel, is you need to eliminate the breeding spaces.
Of course, son.
And that is the tires and old buckets and what have you, barrels. You know, the health officers were making the point to us, Nigel, that because of the dry season, a lot of people were storing water. And a lot of the times, the vessels that they store the water in, right? Because these mosquitoes look for clean water.
They became breeding grounds.
They become breeding grounds, right? So, how much time we have before we go?
About 3 minutes.
We have about 3 minutes. All right, Nigel. Before we go to the break, I wanted to read. Right, I pulled up on the internet. I pulled up a search for the dogs of war. the comment on the dogs of war. And let me just read what it says. In English, the dogs of war is a phrase from Act 3, Scene 1, line 273 of William Shakespeare's Julius Caesar. So for our listener from South, Act 3, Scene 1, line 273 of William Shakespeare's Julius Caesar. And the line goes like this. Cry havoc and let slip the dogs of war. The dog has its ordinary meaning. Havoc is a military order. Hear the thing, eh? Hear the thing, eh? Havoc is a military order permitting the seizure of spoil after a victory. And let slip, of course, means to release from the leash. So havoc is a military order. I heard someone on another radio station yesterday. I was listening a little bit to a talk show, and somebody was making the point and saying that soldiers are so trained that when you give an order, you give an order. So when you resort to this statement, cry havoc and let slip the dogs of war, to the soldier, when you cry havoc, it is a military order. Shakespeare's source for Julius Caesar was the life of Marcus Brutus. And the concept of the dog of war appears in that work in a section devoted to the Greek warrior Aratus. Apart from the literal meaning, parallels have been drawn with the prologue to Henry V, where the warlike king is described as having at his heels awaiting employment the hounds, famine, sword, and fire. And if you go further into that reading, you will see that what are some of the things that accompany the order of havoc. It's not just seizure of spoils after victory. It's not just, well, when they pass through, they go take up your TV and thing and go, you know. It also talks about certain kind of brutal acts upon people, including such things as rape.
So we'll follow that up after the news at 8 o'clock.
U97.5 FM Hot Like Pepper Radio is owned and operated by Anand and Ingrid Ramprasad Singh, directors of Upward Trend Entertainment Limited.
Something for everyone. 975 FM. Music for you. It's all about you.
U97.5 FM, Hot Like Pepper.
पैगामों के लिए रहमतों का है रमजान का
advertise with us at U97.5 FM Hot Like Pepper. We have the largest loyal listenership in Trinidad and Tobago and online. Call now, 720-5858. That's 720-5858.
Road, Brechin Castle in California. Specialist in plant equipment installation, industrial maintenance, general construction service, general civil work, equipment rentals, as well as expert designing and building capabilities. With their head office in the heart of the Point Lisas industrial estate, they are also suppliers of fully automated greenhouses. For further information, call 679-6521, 679-7500, or visit their website rccl@tstT.net.tt. Rio Claro Construction Company Limited of 64 Rivulet Road, Brechin Castle in California, for quality and reliable service in the construction sector.
Sheikh Leisha Limited of number 44 Southern Main Road, Warrenville in Canoopia, the manufacturers and distributors of paper bags, such as grease-proof paper, garbage and plastic bags. They also carry vermicelli, split peas powder, and much, much more. Call them at 665-3336 or 672-3313. Visit them at number 44 Southern Main Road, Canoopia. Sheikh Leisha Limited now introduces their newest product, Shake Punch Vermicelli, the hassle-free and easy way to prepare your tasty sunwine dishes. Enjoy another great quality product from Sheikh Leisha Limited. Sheikh Leisha Limited, your one-stop shop for savings.
Serving its customers for over 60 years, Ramjitsingh's Tire Service of Main Road, Montrose, Chaguanas. They offer services such as tire vulcanizing, tire retreading, and computerized wheel balancing. Ramjitsingh's Tire Service offers quality and reliable service with the most experienced and knowledgeable technicians. Inquire about their special prices on popular brands on new and used tires. Ramjitsingh's Tire Service of Main Road, Montrose, Chaguanas. Pay them a visit or give them a call at 665-7467 or 665-RIMS. Ramjitsingh's Tire Service, leaders in the tire industry.
Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago, and welcome to the 8 o'clock news on 97.5 FM Hot Like Pepper. We are broadcasting to you live from Couva in central Trinidad. I am Kenrick Jaggernaut. A very good morning to you. The anti-kidnapping unit has joined the search for missing teenagers, 14-year-old Daniela Gobin of Sangre Grande and 15-year-old Ophelia Holder of Tobago. Yesterday, the search continued in Manzanillo and environs for Gobin and Holder, who were residents of the St. Jude's Home for Girls in Belmont and who disappeared while on a retreat in Manzanillo. According to reports last week Thursday, the teenagers were among 35 girls from the correctional institution on a 2-week retreat in Carries on the Bay Hotel in Manzanillo when they evaded security, including police officers, and ran off. It is understood that the girls ran away to attend a party that night. They are yet to be found despite a search involving all relevant agencies. Between March 2010 and February 2012, the state spent $75.5 million on the Color Me Orange Make Work program. This according to Government Chief Whip in the Senate, Ganga Singh. Singh gave a summary breakdown of expenditure during Senate question time in response to queries filed by Camille Robinson-Regis, the opposition chief whip. The timeline for the figures suggested the program straddled both the PNM and the People's Partnership Administration. A 33-year-old Tobago man is expected to appear in the Miaro Magistrate Court this morning, charged with 11 sexual offenses against his 12-year-old stepdaughter. The incidents are alleged to have taken place from May 2013 to as recent as last week. The man, who now resides in Miaro, is facing 7 counts of indecent sexual assault, 2 charges of grievous sexual assault, and 2 counts of rape. He was arrested by Miaro police at his home on Monday. The child is reported to have confided in a close female relative about the sexual assaults. Several sergeants and inspectors yesterday held talks with President of the Police Social and Welfare Association, Inspector Anand Rameso, and Secretary Acting Inspector Michael Sales to vent their frustration over what they describe as an unfair delay by the Acting Commissioner of Police in promoting them. The officers are demanding that the association's executive seek the Prime Minister's intervention as chairman of the National Security Council to have their promotions and assessment speeded up. There are reportedly more than 200 sergeants awaiting promotion and 150 inspectors to be assessed for promotion to the next higher rank. During the meeting, it is reported that officers complained about the failure of the Acting Commissioner of Police to promote them after a 6-month waiting period. Well, that's a look at some of the stories making the news to 8 o'clock here on 975 FM Hot Like Pepper. Let's see what's happening in the weather picture for today. Well, the Met Office has informed that Trinidad and Tobago will be predominantly hazy and cloudy today. There's a possibility of some mild showers in a few confined localities. Seas are normal. Waves up to 2 meters in open waters and 1 meter in sheltered areas. The maximum temperature for today is 32 degrees Celsius, the minimum 23 degrees Celsius, and sunset at 31 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock. That's a look at the 8 o'clock news and, of course, the weather forecast on 975. I am Kenrick Jaggernaut, reminding you that we've got another newscast coming up at 12 noon. And, of course, you can look forward to the sports update, which I will present to you at 10 o'clock this morning. Stay with us here as we continue with the final hour of today's edition of the ILP public consultation with Sunil Ramjitsingh and Nigel Mahabir. Stay with us here on 975 FM Hot Like Pepper.
Tune in every Wednesday from 7 to 9 a.m. for ILP Speaks National Consultation with the ILP every Wednesday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on U97.5 Hot Like Pepper. Good magnificence.
The sunshine, always on my mind. Give me your sunshine newspapers. They're not reporting like any other. They're giving me the facts, information to the max. I'm getting my news from all around, even worldwide, and what's going on in town. This weekly is hard to beat because the sunshine pushing some heat. Give me your sunshine, it's always on my mind.
Get the facts, get the sunshine.
Tune in every Wednesday from 7 to 9 a.m. for ILP.
This is the ILP's national consultation, sponsored, of course, by the Sunshine newspaper, and all the latest headlines in the 61st edition of the Sunshine newspaper.
And our Sunshine newspaper, which is on newsstands from today, from this morning, Prime Minister's trip to World Cup is exposed. Get the real details on Kamala's trip to Brazil. Rapists on the rampage in Trinidad and Tobago. Has MP Stacey Rupnarayan abandoned her wedding ring? Find out in the Sunshine. ADB death blamed for the death of ice cream magnate Willie Balgobin. Government's favorite contractor SIS is sponsoring Brent Sancho's football club in Central. All of this and much more in this week's Sunshine newspapers on newsstands nationwide. Get your copy today or visit www.sunshine-tt.com. And Nigel, just thumbing through the newspapers today. I have in front of me the newspaper, of course. Make sure I get your Sunshine, right? But the news is a daily newspaper. And I just pulled this randomly because Kenrick passed through and he left it. And on the front page, Boys' House of Horrors at St. Michael's Home.
Well, that's an ongoing story, because
right?
there was an issue with that about 6 to 8 months ago.
Anti-kidnapping joins the search for St. Jude's girls. 75 million spent on Colony Orange, but I recall about 2 years ago an announcement that a larger sum was being put into Colony Orange. It was 300 million.
Well, I mean...
So I have some investigation to do on this 75 million. Is it that they said they would have spent 300, but they only spent 75? Or is it that there's an error in the report? And I have to check it. Right? You have so many instances of crime and criminal activity and so on. Yes, I'm seeing some stories where police are seizing some guns and so on, and I'm glad for that. Right? But Nigel, is this a safe society that we live in?
Well, no, the question really is, are we better off than we were 4 years and 2 months ago? Because it's 4 years and 2 months this administration's basically been in. It's been in about that. And I mean, are you happier than you were before? And I mean, it's all the criticism against the previous administration and the one before that and the one before that and the one before that. But I mean, the question is, where is the progress that, is out there? Do you really feel it?
Nigel, you and I, we joined the UNC's fight against what were in principle wrong with the way that the PNM did business.
Yeah, but while we were fighting what the PNM did, other people were taking notes. And those are the ones who wound up in cabinet, apparently.
Right, and you and I, when we were part of that fight, we were fighting because certain things were wrong and we wanted it to change, and we wanted people to come in who would do it differently, and they promised that they would. And now, and I just use the issue with the soldiers, really, to show that the handling of it, right, what is happening, what happened under the previous administration is happening now. And this administration is doing the same thing that administration did. And people should say to this present administration, we're not accepting you behaving like the PNM. And I sit down and I'm thinking about it as we talk about literature, we talk about Actress Scene 1, line 273 of Julius Caesar by William Shakespeare. Another great novel crossed my mind, Animal Farm by George Orwell.
Well, I've been quoting that one for a long time.
George Orwell's Animal Farm. And for persons, I hope young literature students, I don't know if it is still recommended reading for them, right? But there's a television version of it. It's a cartoon. You can look for it on the internet and you'll find it. I'm scrolling through here on my phone quickly to see if I can find the rules that they made up for themselves. I can't seem to find it.
I could quote you something.
But there was one that said animals should not sleep in beds.
That's one.
And when they started this, when a certain group of animals felt that the bed in the house was comfortable, they went and they changed. No animal should sleep in bed without sheets.
Yeah,
they put on at the end without sheets.
That's the amendment. I mean, and the other one was 2 legs bad, 4 legs good. Another one was let's see, no, all animals are equal.
But some animals are more equal than others.
That's the amendment. Now somebody else amended that one on the body.
And for those who may not be familiar with the book Animal Farm by author George Orwell, take the call. I don't want to lose the call. Take the call.
Good morning, caller. From where are you calling?
I'm calling from Dabadi. How are you doing?
Go ahead, Dabadi.
Hi, good morning, sir.
All right, how are you doing? All right?
Yeah, right.
I'm glad that you continue to highlight the matter that I raised. And I want to add on make a few comments to it.
Sure.
Because what I want to say is that soldiers work on instruction. Soldiers work on instructions. That is a mechanical operation. The soldiers are given instructions and they go out to work. I want to ask this morning, I want to ask the Prime Minister, and I want to ask the President, because you know that the President is the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces.
Correct.
Who is giving those instructions? Who is giving those instructions to the Army? I want to ask the Chief of Defense Force Staff. I want to ask the Prime Minister, who is the head of the National Security Council, and I want to ask the President, who is giving those instructions to the soldiers? Because that is a serious matter. Because the soldiers are moving outside of the law. I am not a colleague or a friend of the Police Social Welfare Association, but they have a very important point, because they are crying out. But I'm saying to them, you have to cry out to the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, because it's the Armed Forces in Trinidad and Tobago are at work. And I said earlier, and I will continue to have the view, that there's a certain trigger, that involvement or that behavior by the Defense Force has been triggered by the terminology you spoke from Shakespeare, to unleash the dogs of war.
By havoc.
With havoc. And the thing about it is, it went on with the Minister of National Security, and the Police Social Welfare Association is asking the Commissioner of Police, where are you? You are supposed to be the head of the police service. And in law in Trinidad and Tobago, no one is above the law. And there is information, not evidence yet, there is information that the soldiers are acting out of their remit and they are acting illegally. But where is the president? Mr. President, you told us that there are powers we think you have, you don't have, and powers you think you have, you have. But you are, Mr. President, the head of the armed forces. But your armed forces are creating havoc in certain parts of Trinidad and Tobago. Where are you? What are you saying? Madam Prime Minister, you are the head of the National Security Council. What are you saying? Minister of National Security, well you are in it, and you have to be careful. But the question is, would somebody ask the question to the Prime Minister, the Minister of National Security, and most importantly, the President of Trinidad and Tobago, who's the head of the armed forces? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you. Nigel, I'm looking at, as I said, Kenrick just left the Newsday in the studio. And on page 17 of the Newsday, there's a headline, Youth Crime Worries Griffith. Youth crime worries Griffith. Minister of National Security, Gary Griffith, has expressed concern that the country's social and moral fabric is being constantly challenged and many young people are falling prey to a life of crime. Griffith made a statement in a written speech at the launch on Monday of the Trinidad and Tobago Cadet Force Annual Training Camp 2014. Right? You are on a drive to get young people, young cadets, to become involved in a military modeled organization for youths. And you have soldiers behaving in this way. Does the word Abu Ghraib ring a bell to you, Nigel?
I know Abu Ghraib. Abu Ghraib was the prison in Iraq, and certain pictures, defamatory pictures of prisoners was brought out of that.
Well, and what was and with the U.S. military, right? While you had a war in progress, right? I believe it was at Abu Ghraib where there were certain atrocities committed against those persons who were under detention, and also even Guantanamo is constantly
under question, yeah.
Under question, right? That even while you are at war, there are rules. There are rules, and people in other countries, they try at least. Even if the authorities falter, the citizens stand up, Nigel, and hold their government account.
Oh, absolutely.
They stand up and say, listen, even if we are at war, you can't treat prisoners like that.
Absolutely.
And therefore, for example, I'm saying on page, what did I say, page 17 or page 14? Page 17 of the Newsday. When you see young people looking towards the military institutions for an example of discipline.
But they don't look at it as discipline.
So a lot of these young persons go in there and they are encouraged. They say, listen, you can consider a career in the military service, right? And Nigel, what are they going to emulate? Lawlessness?
Well, this is it. They don't see it as discipline. They don't see it. They see it as a paycheck and power.
What are you indoctrinating these young people with? Well, you are indoctrinating them with lawlessness.
No, but they see this as empowerment. I mean, even going into the police force. If you ask many of the police cadets, why are you in the? Well, they want the power. And it is a power-hungry situation, and they flaunt their power. Even as a young private in the police force, they will stop cars and this thing. I've had stories of young ladies who've been harassed by police officers, and they've had issues with that. And the power.
There is one particular officer. Let me tell you. He was dating one of my cousins, and my cousin's dad is a well-known police officer. He has been in the service for a long time, and a lot of his officers know him. And the guy she was dating, Nigel, he was a young officer just coming out of the training barracks. But his father was also a very well-respected officer. And my cousin's dad and his dad were very close friends. And the two kids grew up together.
Right.
And as expected, they became a couple. And one day after work, we got together with some friends and so on. And while we were walking, one of the girls to get a taxi. A taxi driver started to make some little remarks, heckling remarks at one of the girls who was in our group. And this boy, he was out of uniform, in private time, right? He rushed up to the taxi driver and chuck up the man inside his car. And those of us who were with him, yes, we were offended by the remarks the man had made towards the girl and what have you, but that's not the way to deal with it, right? We left there, we went to an establishment. Right? The security, the policy was that he had to be searched. Right? He don't want to be searched. So you have no respect for the policies of the people. But you know what happened? 2 years later, he was on a murder charge, You know why? He went on a raid. I can't tell people where and when and what have you because it's an ongoing matter. They went on a raid. And he was trigger happy. And a bullet left his gun and killed a man inside the man's house. And today, he's a disgraced officer facing, I think they broke down the charge to manslaughter now.
But fundamentally, no. The psychological problems you have within military, and because these recruitment of youth officers have to follow on. Because what I've noticed is certain individuals are emulating the people above them, and they don't understand the rules and regulations. Why? I'll give you an example. There were a number of the Presbyterian schools had foreign teachers, and they went on themselves to be teachers, and they emulated the teachers they knew, and they emulated only the power that they had to rule over the classroom. And these teachers now rule over the classroom with this iron fist mentality, but without the background knowledge of the actual teaching motif, of why they're doing it, and what discipline and what factors they're implementing in it. And what happens is it goes down the line to the third and fourth generation, and the only thing that remains is the position and the power. And we have a fundamental flaw in that. If you do not understand the rules and regulation and how this service came about, then obviously it corrupts the system all the way down to the core.
Nigel, this cadet program, this summer training, is 300 cadets ages 12 to 18 participating in the camp together with 52 adult staff.
Good morning, caller. From where are you calling?
I'm calling back from San Fernando.
Go ahead, Saffron.
I heard somebody say some of the Presbyterian schools and the teacher emulated those people from abroad. The teachers from abroad and all that. I've been teaching service. I'm now retired. I attended a Presbyterian school.
Right.
I'm not aware of any such thing. As a matter of fact, the Presbyterian schools were started by the missionaries.
Yes.
People who were priests.
Yes.
And at no time in my years in primary school from the 50s to my present time, have I been a retired teacher now, have I come across anywhere where Presbyterian teachers or principals were their only pushing authority. Another thing I want to comment on, the gentleman now at the back was talking about Mr. Warner accompanied the chief of defense staff to DB, and they went there to reclaim state lands. Gentlemen, please, this is Radio 97.5. We're not stupid people on the station.
No, I don't assume anybody to be stupid on the station.
Hold on.
Sure, go ahead. I'll give you some latitude.
Hold on. The thing is, they didn't come to reclaim no land from no terrorists. These people didn't take no land. They weren't squatting on land. There was a camp set up for squatting, which should happen anywhere in the country, that wasn't squatting, as a matter of fact. It was a protest. So they say the chief of defense staff had to come to reclaim state land. I mean, come off it, man. And Jack Warner didn't accompany them. They accompanied Jack Warner. Jack Warner asked them to accompany him there.
So, if you'll allow me, you were erroneous in your statement. You were erroneous in your statement about the dogs of war. issue. I'll leave you. I'll leave you with it. All right, sir. Thank you very much. As you say, you don't want us to peddle any inaccuracies upon people, and I would not allow you to do the same. Right? Yes, there's a movie by the name. I implore you to do some reading. I even told you what line to go to in the Julius Caesar play by William Shakespeare. It's Act 3, Scene 1, line 273. I implore you over the course of the next week, you can access it on the internet. You can get it at any of the popular bookstores. Go get a copy of it, read it, right? And then maybe next week I'll be glad to hear from you again, right?
Well, so let me just go over my situation. I have two experiences.
And by the way, Nigel, I am also a product of a Presbyterian primary school education.
Right. Well, my fundamental point. My brother went to Holy Ghost Fathers School, and I went to Hillview College, and I was victimized, basically not unlike what happens in public forum. When I challenge the authority comes down upon you. And that's basically how it is.
But maybe the point the caller was making is that not necessarily unique to one place.
Well, we were talking about the military. Now, the thing is, if you have people who serve a military position and they execute their power responsibly, and then you recruit 500 gentlemen and all they learn is the power. They don't know how you achieve the power and what you did to accomplish the power. By being promoted up the ranks, this is what they excel at. They don't understand the discipline and the operation.
Nigel,
it's a teaching fault. And my point was, when I came back to my experience with Presbyterian school, when I challenged the Presbyterian, the staff room, that they were wrong and this, that, and the other, I was chastised for citing their shortcomings. And this is a normal thing with me. Now, what happened was, I go back down to the line of it, and I meet older people, and they say, so-and-so from so-and-so day in Naparima College taught Dennis Hall and Tony Hall's father taught physics and Latin in Naparima, and this and this and this and this was the case. And the people who came subsequently taught the same thing, did the same operation, did the same thing.
So what you are saying is that in a line of teachers, as it were, what was learned and taught by one was passed on to the other,
right,
and formed the basis of their style that created generations after.
But what the roots of it fell away, and the teaching deteriorated because the power over the classroom, the discipline of the students became more priority than the actual teaching of the subject and structure.
And certain things were lost over time.
Now, what we have here, now the reason I brought up that particular point was that a military person in 1910 who fought in the Boer Wars, and someone who fought in World War I, and someone who fought then in World War II, these things handed down from father to son to son to son. Sometimes, and not in all cases, but in some cases, what you do as a military, the rules of war of engagement deteriorated, and you can see that over the 1900s, the 20th century in this planet, that rules that were engaged in the Boer Wars were not enforced in World War I. Rules that were enforced in World War I did not enforced in World War II. Rules that in World War II deteriorated through the Korean War, deteriorated through the Vietnam War. If you watch the old 1800s one, them idiots lined up in lines and shot at each other on a battlefield. Now, you wouldn't do that today in this day, and you don't understand why. You stand up there and say, why would people do that? But there were rules and regulations to clarify war in the American Civil War and in Waterloo against France and England. And as these things deteriorate, war becomes more and more harnessed and criminalized and it looks vulgar, and we have deteriorated as a society. Just watching how we fight war from the 1700s to today. Now, the same thing has happened in a teaching facility, and I'm using Presbyterian because I have a personal gripe with some people in Hillview College who have all retired now and gone their way. But the next batch, of course, has come, and I will not say they're worse. I just say they have not understood the rules of engagement by which the previous teachers had come by. Now, what's happened, the point we came back to here is that when you're a military person, you don't leave the base with a gun, with a military jeep to go and enforce the law. There's a rule there. And what has happened now is we have now lost that one particular rule. Someone has violated it. And the public will say, well, they're going out and seeking justice, and they're going out. And what we're about to do is we're about to expand the engagement there to a level by which we will not be able to escape. Because they said they did it before, we're setting precedent.
And your point is that every time we let it slip, it goes further and further and further down the precipice.
Right.
And that is the point. And now, Nigel, as I'm saying here, right, we have 300 young cadets, ages 12 to 18, in a camp together with 52 adult staff. And there's a military-style institution that is the cadets, right? And a lot of them are going to emulate the military institutions. And what you have going on here is rampant lawlessness, and nobody cares.
Good morning, caller. From where are you calling?
Caller from Chagonas.
Go ahead, Chagonas.
Hi, morning.
Good morning to you, Sunil.
Morning.
The soldiers there, I think they should be accompanied by police officers. Because
always.
Soldiers cannot enforce any law except in the case of a state of emergency.
Correct.
Or if you have a military tribunal trying a fellow soldier, as the case might be. Because the enforcement of law is the sole prerogative of the police service in the country and the judiciary, and not the soldiers. And as we have seen there, what is happening there now, that when you have soldiers there, unregulated, they terrorize the population as is presently happening in those hotspots in the Mova area. Now, those areas are synonymous with high crime and lawlessness. And although today it might be them, tomorrow it might be us. Therefore, the rule of law must prevail. Because when you break the law in order to enforce another law, you have the beginnings of anarchy in a country. Now, secondly, let me state there, you were talking about the dengue outbreak.
Chikungunya really.
Right, there are 4 serologies. It's endemic here, so you can't get rid of it. Right? It's not that somebody comes from another country and introduces it here. It's endemic in Trinidad and Tobago. And there are 4 serological types, type 1 to type 4. And as you get infected with, let's say, with type 1, it's a milder disease. But as you get infected with type 2 and type 3, the virus becomes more virulent. And where it happens to be dangerous is when you're infected with type 3 or type 4. And you start bleeding, which you call, you have small dots like measles there, and blood comes out. And you lose the blood volume, and you suffer from dengue hemorrhagic fever, which results in dengue shock syndrome, and you will die. Now, aspirin is contraindicated for the simple reason that in order to stop bleeding, you must form a clot. And forming a clot is dependent upon the platelets getting together, sticking together.
And ibuprofen.
And yes, and what happens? The aspirin stops the platelets from sticking together,
process,
so you bleed. So there's no cure for it. You just have to drink a lot of water and take something to reduce the fever. Because one of my children had it, and from the time I saw it, I put it there, I knew what to give him, and he recovered. But if you don't know about it, then you are going to bleed to death. And this is what I'm saying. The blood volume reduces, you have dengue shock syndrome, and you will have to go and see the undertaker. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Lachman, for calling in. My point really with raising this awareness is so that if people are aware of what are some of the symptoms, when you see the symptoms, I would really strongly advise that you seek the counsel of a medical doctor. So because as Dr. Lachman just pointed out there, when you take certain types of medication, such as the aspirin and the ibuprofen and what have you, and I'm not a doctor, but this is just common knowledge, when you take those kinds of those certain types of tablets that we're quick to reach for, Nigel. You have a headache or a joint pain or whatever, you're quick to reach for a particular brand of medication, and that may actually make your situation worse. So even with the dengue, I advise people, once you start to develop the symptom, do not try to treat yourself with your home remedies and the things that you're normally accustomed taking, because if you take what you're normally taking and it turns out that you are infected with a particular virus, as the case might be, or you have certain symptoms and so on, you can actually be killing yourself when you think that you're trying to make yourself better.
Just a general note, muscle pain and joint pain, straight to the emergency room, the casualty.
With the fever and so on?
Muscle pain and joint pain is an immediate indication that this is not an ordinary flu or something. It's something closer to dengue, or as you said, the chikungunya virus.
Chikungunya.
Chikungunya. I have a little cousin, she say chukolingo, and I just laugh every time she says it.
So I just want to advise people, the safest thing to do, check with your doctors, and they will know what to do, and they will advise you accordingly. Do not try to treat yourself. Don't take it lightly.
Now, I have a text here, and I want to go over it.
Sure.
Somebody indicated to me that, as my argument was just a few minutes ago, he said, there are politicians previous who understood the rules of engagement, and then there are the next generation of politicians who just simply approach the politics for power. And of course, the deterioration of our politicians falls in the same category. As before, like out of courtesy, you would make a joke at someone else's expense. It has now become a personal attack. What it is. So I mean, it just goes to show you, again, there's the deterioration in the military service, the deterioration in teaching, and of course the deterioration in politics, of course.
That's a good point to go back to Animal Farm, Nigel.
All right.
Because before we took that call from San Fernando, I was about to say to tell a little bit about the Animal Farm story, and I really want to encourage young people in particular, right, to read it, because you can learn from it. What had happened is that there was this farm, and there were animals there who were working on the farm, and the farmer used to exploit and ill-treat the animals.
Of course, Mr. Farmer Jones.
Right, and what happened is that eventually the animals looked at
the animals revolted.
Well, they looked at, first of all, before they revolted, they looked at the way they were treated by the farmer. They looked at how they were being treated by the farmer. And when they looked at how they were being treated by the farmer, they decided to have a revolt. So they had a meeting one night in the barn.
That's right.
Right, and you had everybody there. You had the pigs and the chickens, and
the meeting was called by Old Major.
Right, Old Major, right, an old pig who was respected for his wisdom and so on. And they even, after they discussed their problems and they made a pact among themselves, a vow among themselves, that they're going to stand up and they're not going to be treated as animals, as lowly animals with no dignity and so on. Interestingly enough, they all joined hands and they sang songs. They had a song,
right?
Right? That became sort of like the anthem. And what they did was basically they revolted and they kicked out the farmer from the farm. They took over the farm. So the farm was a piece of land, a piece of real estate that they owned with resources. And they were, of course, the human capital is not the word, but it's the closest thing I can liken it to. They became the capital on the land. And they made up a set of rules, about 10 rules or so, I think, maybe more, I can't remember. They made up some rules that as a society, or a group of people, or animals in this case, were living together as a community. These are the rules that they decided that they would live by. And the rules reflected two things. Number one, it reflected what was wrong with the previous rulership, which was the farmer or the humans.
Right.
But it also reflected what were their aspirations as a community. And it would have been like a sort of a guideline that we agree to live by these rules so that we don't go down the path that we came from before, because we saw what was wrong with where we were and how we were under the farmer. But what happened is that over time,
they bend the rules.
Those persons who were sort of pushed or rose or filled into the leadership positions,
the cabal of pigs,
started to get literally drunk with power, because they started to consume alcohol and eat human food and what have you, right? But they became corrupted by the power that they had, and what they started to do is they started to change the rules they started to change the rules by which they had agreed to live as a community. Right? And
they're called constitutional amendments.
And what happened, Nigel, is that eventually the animals found themselves no better off than they were with the farmer. And they ended up having to wage a battle. I mean, if you look at the book or you look at the movie, there's a cartoon version, and for those of you who are my friends on Facebook, what I'll do, I just found a link here to the movie. So I'll put it up, right? It's 71 minutes long, right? And you all could view it. It's 1954
Animal Farm,
film, right? Those loyal ones who at different stages started to become wise to the fact that the pigs in particular, who were the leaders, right, the aristocratic and leadership group, that they were moving away from the principles of their community. One by one, they were eliminated. They sent one day they sent the old horse
to the glue
factory.
Yeah, boxer.
Right? And it's interesting that, you know, that this is a book that was pre-1956, right? It was 1954, and it's so relevant today, Nigel.
I think if you know the history, it's based on, I think, the Russian
system.
Revolution. Stalin was removed, and they put Lenin was removed, and they put Stalin in charge. And I believe the representation is that the old farmer Jones is Lenin, who established the Soviet Union.
So in the Trinidad context, what you do is you remove Patrick Manning and you put Kamala, and everything that was wrong before continues today and gets worse.
Maybe a few more steps down the road from there. I mean, Eric Williams too. Huh? Good morning, caller. From where are you calling?
It's me again from Chagonas here.
Go ahead,
I'm glad you mentioned the Stalin issue. When Stalin became head of the Soviet Union there, the president of Soviet Union, farmers in the collective farm, the people who owned lands there at the time, they had to produce a certain amount of food and give to the state, and they refused. And Stalin confiscated the land.
That's correct.
As a result, millions of people died of starvation there. Right? Now, you mentioned something about the Presbyterian school and about the authority established in those schools, with this sort of militarization. Now, those two issues are being confused. A teacher is an authoritarian figure.
Yes.
All right? And you must exercise your authority in the class.
Yes.
That has nothing to do with militarization and what happens later on in society at all. Thank you very much.
All right. The intention wasn't, Nigel made clear, the intention wasn't confuse it too. But you know, interesting, if you look at that model there, where Dr. Lachman is saying that if you look back at that what happened in Russia, where the state started to demand from you your produce, right? Well, look at what's happening to contractors today. Because you have contractors who are doing their work, and when the rewards of their labor, which is their profits, there are individuals who are demanding cuts from it.
Well, I suppose it might be a little bit different given that it was under communist rule. Communist rule believe that...
That's what makes it worse, because this is supposed to be a democracy.
Well, this is democracy in a free capital arena system. But I mean, under communist rule, Stalin established that all property belonged to the state, and everyone was given an equal share. The problem was not everybody was producing an equal share to cover everybody. So I mean, basically the system fell apart at that. But we now seeing that now, let's see, the Berlin Wall fell in 1991, and we've seen the fall of communism, and we're slowly, and in this generation, we're now slowly seeing the fall of capitalism.
And in this country, under the previous administration, we built a wall. We built a wall of shame because you know why? Because we don't want to deal with the problem that plagues the areas of Beetham and Mouvan and Lavantil and so on.
All right, well, Mr. Ramjitsingh, we'll deal with that after the ad break. This is 8:45 and it's 97.5 Hot Like Pepper. This is a paid political broadcast of the ILP National Public Consultation.
Shine. always on my mind. Give me your sunshine newspapers. They're not reporting like any other. They're giving me the facts, information to the max. I'm getting my news from all around, even worldwide, and what's going on in town. This weekly is hard to beat because the sunshine pushing some heat. Give me your sunshine, it always on my mind.
Get the facts, get the sunshine.
Come in and create a new you at Believe's Coalition, located at number 365 Center Point Mall, Ramsaran Street in Chaguanas. Exclusive women's wear, accessories, and much more. Give them a call at 671-6900 or check them out at number 365 Center Point Mall, Ramsaran Street in Chaguanas. Believe's Coalition. Come in and create a new you.
Welcome to Food in Focus. The Agricultural Development Bank, ADB, is a key pillar in the development of our food and agriculture industry. The ADB declares that its mission is to facilitate sustainable socio-economic development of the agribusiness and rural sectors through strategic partnerships with our stakeholders, delivering cutting-edge financial products and services to satisfy our internal and external customers, utilizing a team and customer-focused approach. The ADB also provides farmers and food processors with the financial services they require to improve the profitability of their businesses.
I am really and truly grateful for the things that the ADB have done for me and my family.
I have become a poultry farmer after the closure of Caroni 1975 Limited, ably assisted by the Agricultural Development Bank.
Learn more about how the ADB can help your business by calling the toll-free number at 800-4232.
Team Chicken, Ramkisoon and Ramraji Annual Family Day, hosted this year by the Samlal family on the 20th of July 2014. That's this Sunday at Presentation College, Chaguanas. The fun starts from 10 a.m. All immediate family members are invited to come out and enjoy a fun-filled day picnic. There will be lots of games, lots of eats, lots of drinks, and a whole lot of fun. Calling on the Ramkisoons, Achaibas, Mongols, Dulip Singhs, Prasads, and the Shahs to attend. Once again, this fun-filled family day will be taking place at Presentation College, Chaguanas, starting from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. All immediate family members are invited.
It's a celebration.
The sunshine, always on my mind. Give me your sunshine newspapers. They're not reporting like any other.
The Sunshine Weekly, keeping you in touch locally, regionally, and internationally. Committed to its readership and clientele. The Sunshine, a most timely intervention in these trying times of our nation. Get the facts, get the Sunshine newspaper.
This weekly is hard to beat because the sunshine pushing some heat. Give me your sunshine, it always on my mind.
Get the facts, get the Sunshine.
Go ahead, Mr. Ramjitsingh.
All right, and the Sunshine newspaper, issue number 61, is on your newsstands throughout the country from this morning. So make sure and get your copy. Prime Minister's trip to World Cup is exposed. Get the real details on Kamala's trip to Brazil. Rapists on the rampage in Trinidad and Tobago. Has MP Stacey Rupnarayan abandoned her wedding ring? ADB debt blame for the death of ice cream magnate Willie Balgobin. Government's favorite contractor, SIS, is sponsoring Brent Sancho's football club in Central. All of this and more in this week's Sunshine newspapers on newsstands nationwide, or visit www.sunshine-tt.com for all those hot stories. So Nigel, we're talking about this double standards. The double standards that existed before. And you've seen it in every single aspect of our governance. The thing is, a caller last week mentioned that yes, they would like to hear a bit more about what we would do, what our policies with regard to certain things. But before we can get to the point of discussing policies and so on, like that, we have to come to accept, if I could use that word, we have to come to accept that what is wrong with our society and what is it that we want to change. Because if I just come and tell you this amount of pension and that amount of CPEP and that amount of URP work and I building so much a kilometer a box train and what have you, that does not say anything really about the kind of society that we want to create. It doesn't say anything about the kind of society that we need to create in order for us to progress as a nation and as a people. We have to establish what are the standards that we are prepared to accept. And until, to be honest with you, Nigel, until more and more people are able to recognize that what we were trying to move away from, we have replaced with the same thing or even a worse version of it.
All right, Sunil, let me give you a good challenge here. It goes back to Mr. Wayne Kubra's thing and the camp in Debe. What is the difference between the PP policy of putting this highway exactly where they want it, no matter what water course, swampland, or whose property it goes through, and the PNM's plan to establish a train through all the farming communities and the farming land down from going through Caroni and whatnot? It's basically the same thing. And it's this administration, I think it was Renuka Kandel, who was a councillor for one term in the Chaguanas borough, who fought against that vigorously and whatnot. She was rewarded with her councillorship. But it's basically the same.
Nigel, let me explain something.
Yeah.
With the reroute, that whole issue there.
But connect it back to the PNM's train.
Just now. And I'm honestly, I am really not intent on defending stupidness. Right? My objective, to those who are looking to criticize me, they'll say defending stupidness. But let me just say this, right? With no disrespect at all to Mr. Kublal Singh or the reroute movement, the environmental movement, with no disrespect at all to them, right? What I observed, and I was an observer, what I observed is that there were different people who had different issues.
Right.
Right? And some of the issues were legitimate concerns.
Right.
Some of the issues were not legitimate or not of national concern.
Okay.
But what you found happening was that the persons who were, for example, trying to get more money for their land, and I'm not saying all of them. I'm saying that there were some of them.
Of course.
Not all of them. I'm being very careful. I don't want to end up like you with your Presbyterian school comment just now, right? There were people who had different issues. And some of them were real and genuine of national concern. And then you have some people whose issues were not. They were more personal. Some of them, their issues were more selfish and personal. And what they did was, because this group is against the highway, right? And today I'm against the highway because I'm not getting, let's say, what I want, I will join up with them.
Right.
And what you would have now is, when they come now to discuss highway or no highway, what you had was a big long laundry list that had about 1 million reasons. Well, not 1 million. About 10 or 15 reasons.
Right.
Right? No highway because of so.
Right.
The problem is that some of those issues were really of national concern. Some of them were not. And unfortunately, as you just experienced, unwittingly, unintentionally, when you step forward with a legitimate point, but you introduce into the discussion things that are not really key to the issue, it is easy for the issue to for a person to become distracted. And in my personal and humble opinion, that entire reroute movement issue, it became very clouded.
Right.
It became clouded. The people, let me tell you, the people, you remember when Mrs. Prasad Bisasande went down to Debe and there was a group of people who came and they sat down on the road?
Bagavlalu incident.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you something. I know some of the people who were there, particularly more vocal ones. Right? And I can tell you, I have to be very careful because at a certain point in time, I would have been privy to certain information, and I came into that information in the context of confidence.
Right.
And therefore, I don't want to breach
that confidence.
Right. But I know, right, certain things about the motives of those persons.
Right.
And therefore, their cause, really and truly, their cause was not 100% in line with Dr. Kublai Singh's cause.
Right.
And what happens is, right, when you see what happens is that when one group that is involved in the movement, when one group is being dealt with, what you find is that people broad brush it over to the whole movement.
Now, how is the highway different from the P&M train? And I'll give you a minute to think about that. Because because the argument was made to me earlier, that they were establishing this train, and Renuka Kangal, who was is now a former councillor, she wasn't a councillor at the time, was fighting this train, basically because they were moving it through certain farmland areas and certain regions. And they didn't want it in their vicinity. And I understand Mr. Ramesh Lawrence Maraj, I remember at the time, take up the cause. And they fought this train, hell-bent.
I think I understand where you're going.
Yeah.
And we have a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Let me say this. At a certain stage of the discussion about a highway project, there wasn't much. At a certain stage, I will tell you, there are different people involved for different reasons.
Of course.
Right? No.
And when they were fighting the P&M train, there were different people involved for different reasons.
Listen.
Yeah.
Listen. You have to separate the land ownership issue from the environmental issues. Remember we were talking about the...
But that brings it back to the train as well. The train had environmental issues and had land ownership issues.
Give me a chance so I can finish it before B-Sci-Fi takes the microphone, right? Remember when we were talking about the salaries issue, I told you I had to separate the legislators issue from the magistrates issue?
Yes.
In this case, you also have to separate the environmental issues from the land ownership issues.
Okay.
Right? In the case of the railway
train,
the train project, the main concern that a lot of people had was what was going to become of their private land.
Right.
And the compensation issues and so on.
But there were environmental issues.
Wait. Right? I tell you, you have to separate the issues. In the case of the reroute issue, right? The majority of the land out of what was privately owned, right? There wasn't objection from the people in the beginning, you know. What happened afterwards, Nigel? We will remember that a lot of people agreed to be relocated and this and that and the other. And what happened is, as you started to progress along, people started to become dissatisfied with what they were getting. Now there were a lot of people who were squatters and had no legitimate claim to the, you're laughing, but listen.
No, well, I'm watching the time and I know we haven't gotten to the point.
You can't bring this about 2 minutes to the hour and expect a proper answer, right? But if I could beg Beast while he's setting up, right, and beg Kendrick, right, there were people who were squatters, right? They know they had no legitimate claims, so they were glad to be relocated. Then you had some people, right, a lesser number of people who had private lands, and at first they were happy because they thought they get a pound and a crown. But then it turns out now that when they started to evaluate what is the value of the land, when certain people look at the acreage they had and they thought they getting prime real estate price for it, and they'll make a killing, it turns out that they couldn't get that because some of it is swampland.
Right.
And those people now
turn to environmental issues.
So those people now start to kick up. At the same time, Dr. Kublai Singh and they are raising the environmental issues. And I honestly don't know for a fact that the exact environmental issues raised with the railway project is the same as the ones raised with the Point 14 Highway project. I assume that the Point 14 Highway project have more issues than the ones up in the more central and north part. Am I right? It may have more because this area has been developed and so on, whereas down there talking about Virgin Swamp.
I'm going to challenge you on this next week. But folks, this has been the ILP Wednesday, and of course, don't forget, folks, tomorrow at Friday at Rienzi, 8 a.m. We're headed up to Whitehall, and we're going to be marching for the Carney workers. So don't forget, and I will be there personally to sign autographs.
And Nigel, let me just, I want to wish everyone out there a safe and enjoyable day. I urge you to be careful on the roads, in between we're getting we're getting occasional rainfall and what have you, and the roads can easily become very slippery. Alright, so please, exercise caution and be careful on the roads in particular, and do have a safe and enjoyable week until we meet again.
Hotline cover at 97.5 Popular.
FM Hot Like Pepper Radio is owned and operated by Anand and Ingrid Ramjitsingh.